I'm going to use this opportunity to take a mouthful of Maltesers.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 71, the Great Essen Preview. I'm Steve Tudor.
And I'm Rory Summers. And that's it.
That's it, yes. Yeah. We've been abandoned by our podcast hosts. John is feeling a bit ill, rather under the weather. He has been fighting a cold for the last week, whereas Andy is currently on a barge, bored out of his tiny little mind, I think.
Yes. So that leaves the ginger contingent of PHC to take the reins.
It does indeed.
So expect nothing but sheer professionalism tonight, folks.
Do you think we have to swear every 20 minutes just so we get the Andy quotient in?
Let's see if we can go an entire episode without swearing.
I don't know. I'm going to swear at one point. I know I am. I think there's one particular thing we're going to talk about later where I am going to drop an F-bomb, and I already know this.
All right. Okay.
Unfortunately, that's a little taster of things to come, ladies and gentlemen.
Spoiler alert, indeed. Okay, cool. Well, who's going to swear first, Steve or Rory?
So one of the cool things I wanted to mention here, I was hoping John would be here to talk about it, is me and John went to see Star Wars live in concert this week. Yes,
you guys mentioned that. I saw it on your Facebook and Twitter feeds.
Yeah, so we went to, I can't remember which, it's not Symphony Hall, it's one next to Symphony Hall across the canal in just opposite Brindley Place in Birmingham.
Hippodrome?
I think so. Right. I can never remember. On a school night, it was Tuesday night.
Oh, rebels.
So, yeah, went straight from work kind of thing, got ourselves a cheeky Wagamama's. But that's when things started to go awry.
Oh, really? At Wagamama's?
Well, yeah, because we thought Tuesday night, Wagamama's, be no bugger there, will there? No, 20-minute queue to get in.
and that didn't change your plans when you were queuing up for that long?
No, because there was nowhere else we could get food at that point in time where we were committed.
There's always a Subway, Steve. In Birmingham, there's one every kind of 500 metres.
Well, yeah, there's a Subway. If you can throw a Subway sub, that's how far away the next Subway is. I can't stand Subway, though. I know Andy loves them.
Okay.
Don't do anything for me. But we're queuing up to go into Wagamama's, and we met a listener.
Really? Did they ask you where I was?
No, I think they were just to see us, you know.
No, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
So we met Alberto, who has written a few times, and we've actually seen him a few times. We've seen him at a couple of expos. And funnily enough, he was there to go see the Star Wars concert as well.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
So how was the show then? And what was so special about it? You say it was just a live orchestra?
So what it was, it was a showing of the film, but instead of having the soundtrack music as on the film, that was edited. That was cut out of the soundtrack, and they had a full symphony orchestra playing it live.
Oh, that does sound quite cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
There is something. There was a couple of times when you concentrate on the film, because we went to Empire Strikes Back. We went to see, and there's a couple of times when you concentrate on the film and you forget the orchestra's there because you're so used to the film.
Yeah.
But there's every so often the music from the orchestra, because it's live and you get that extra kind of reverberation or whatever it is, the extra feel, and it kind of takes you aback. I mean, the bit that really struck out to me is the whole Han Solo and Carbonite sequence when he gets dropped into the Carbonite.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but I've never really noticed the music in that scene before. But with that live orchestra playing it, there was something really powerful about it.
Did you get goosebumps at any point?
Of course.
Well, right, okay, good. Yeah. A mission accomplished. Well, that does sound really cool. If I like Star Wars, I might consider doing it myself.
What I was discussing at work, because my colleague at work, she's a massive Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah.
And she was saying, she's a little bit jealous because she's a little bit of a Star Wars fan, but it's I hope they do a Lord of the Rings one. She's going, we're going. If there's Lord of the Rings, we're going.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be on that one as well. Unlike you, I've not been doing anything cool like that. I have been studiously putting a lot of time into Duolingo and attempting to learn French. But in the process of doing this, I have learned that on Duolingo, the app that helps you learn languages, you can also learn Klingon now. which which I have started.
So you're giving it a go?
I have given it a go. Well, mainly after the last podcast where Andy was talking about the Star Trek RPG, I was like, there's a legitimate reason to learn Klingon is so I can play a Klingon in an RPG and talk Klingon to everybody.
Oh dear! I bet you Paul in our D&D game knows a bit of Klingon as well.
I don't doubt it for a second.
It's weird in our group of our gaming group. I feel the odd one out because everyone seems to be massive Star Trek fans, and I'm the massive Star Wars fan. It's slightly skewed.
So
I'm not saying I hate Star Trek. I mean, I love Star Trek as well.
Yeah.
Just everyone seems to be like a level above me on the Star Trekness.
Okay, so how excited did you get when you saw the new Picard trailer that was dropped at the New York Comic Con?
I watched that this morning, and I was definitely.
Oh yes, I'll have some of that.
And and this is the weird thing about watching these trailers these days. I had that sudden horrible feeling like, oh, hang on, where's this being shown? And when it came up Amazon, it's like, oh, I'm subscribed to Amazon. That's good. I'm happy with that.
Sorted.
A couple of weeks back, I also watched that Mandalorian trailer. It's the new Star Wars TV series. It looks amazing. No, actually, the trailer. I'd say go watch the trailer because the trailer does look amazing.
Mandalorian. I'll make a note of that, Steve. All right.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to watch it in the UK.
Really? Whatever?
Well, it's supposed to be coming to this new Disney streaming service.
Oh, no.
Disney
of
Netflix.
Course, yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not coming to the UK yet.
Oh.
And no one knows when.
Of course. Thanks, Disney. And LucasArts. And Marvel.
Yeah.
Signing over to the dark side.
Yeah, have you seen all the new Marvel series coming to that as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I've heard some announcements. And talking of announcements that we might be able to see is the new spin-off of Battlestar Galactica.
Ooh.
Yeah, I saw a fleeting mention of this on Twitter this morning. So who he's doing for All Mankind at the moment, which is the new Apple TV show about an alternate history where the Soviets land on the moon first and then they send women astronauts up and blah, 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 blah. But the guy who worked on that was also the executive producer on the remake of the Battlestar Galactica, and they're making a spin-off TV show of Battlestar Galactica.
Ooh, interesting.
And that's all the information I know. Possibly wrong, but either way, we can dream.
We can.
So... And that's all the news of geekdom that I've been experiencing in the last 72 hours.
I did wonder why all these trailers suddenly dropped online.
Well, it's Comic-Con, isn't it? They're all around at the moment.
Yeah.
The New York Comic-Con, anyway. But
speaking of which, comic-related news.
Let's dive into the news, Steve. Yes. So, do you want to lead this one, my friend?
Oh, go on then, because I read this headline to begin with and I got it completely wrong. Because I saw this headline which basically says Games Workshop and Marvel are to team up. And I went, well, that's not right, because Fantasy Flight Games have just announced this Marvel miniatures game and this Marvel card game. So why would they be doing a game with Games Workshop as well? But I got it the wrong way round, didn't I? Yes,
it's Marvel and Games Workshop team up, not Games Workshop and Marvel team up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clear as mud. How did you get it wrong?
Yeah. Which basically means what they're doing is they're going to be releasing some comics set in the Warhammer universes. Now, we don't know much about this, do we? Is it 40k? Is it Age of Sigma? Or is it all both?
We have nothing at the moment. All we know is that the first issues will hit in autumn 2020.
Okay.
Currently, that's all the information they've released.
Did you read the comic that came out in the late 90s?
Be a lot more specific, because yes.
Oh, they did. Was it Games Workshop self-published one?
Oh, yeah.
I only bought a couple of issues of it, and they were like, it wasn't like one comic, like traditional comic, which is like one story throughout. You got it, and there was like, 4 or 5 stories in it.
Oh, okay. No,
and
I didn't read those.
Some of them were sequential, so it was like, for from issue to issue, and other ones were just like one-offs. I've probably still got it. I've got a box of old comics I collected around about the time, and it's probably still in there, to be honest. But it was actually quite good because they could do some crazy things in it because most of them are one-off stories.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know that one. I do know that earlier this year there was the Blood Bowl. It might be in last year. There was the Blood Bowl comics that ran for about 6 issues. Oddly enough, my monitor is actually sat on the box where I keep all my comics. So yeah, I've got the Spider-Man life stories, the Stranger Things 6 stories, which are quite good, and the Batman Year of the Villain, all in the box that the monitor's currently sat on. But Blood Bowl, yeah, that was quite a good little story. It's just 4 or 5 issues long about a story of a Blood Bowl team going through the championships. So it's not the first time Games Workshop have done it, but it's the first time they're doing it with such a powerhouse like Marvel. And did you see the other Games Workshop news? Their other team up with Bandai.
No.
We mentioned it in the News Collider back in May, but Bandai and Games Workshop have teamed up to make action figures. And the first one, which is a Space Marine, is now available for pre-order. £75 for an 8-inch Space Marine with 50 points of articulation. Apparently you can pose this Space Marine like mid-run, or kind of crouching down or kneeling, because it's kind of so weighted and balanced that you can pose it in any way you like for your kind of display shelf. But yeah, 8 inches, comes with a bolt gun and a sword, multiple heads and multiple hands. It looks epic.
Now, I've seen these before because I've seen people make little dioramas out of the Marvel ones. Oh my God, I've just loaded the picture of it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's epic.
It really is. So it's fully posable, really highly detailed mouldings, and expertly hand painted is what the blurb on the the Games Workshop website says. It does look cool. £75 though for an 8-inch model.
Yeah, I'm not going to justify that cost, am I?
just stick with the bobblehead thing. Well, the Funko Pops. Yeah, just get one of those.
Funko Pops, yeah. Oh my God, that actually does look amazing. Quick, next before I click the pre-order button.
Okay, so something big is coming for Dungeons & Dragons, I think. So if you're a follower of the Dungeons & Dragons and the website and the Arzak, is it the Unearthed Arcana? Let me get my words out.
Yeah, which is their playtest material, isn't it? It's
yes, it is.
Here's what we've got. Give it a go. See if you can break it.
Now, earlier this year, they released the 5th edition version of the Artificer? The Artificer?
Artificer, I think. I can never get this right.
Him, who then later appeared in the
Eberron book, which
is
it out? Yeah, it's either out yet or it's just about to come out.
Yeah. But over the last few months, they've been dropping new subclasses for all of the current classes. So we've got new ones for the monk, for the barbarian, for the wizard. Recently, we've got the wizard, the cleric, and the druid. There's only 3 classes that are remaining to get their new subclasses. And all of this over the last few months screams at me, new big supplement on its way.
Yes. So I think it's going to be something similar to Xanathar's Guide to Everything, because they seem to be doing at the moment a big monster book and a big player book, and a monster book player book. So they did Volo's Guide to Monsters, which included a bit of everything that did, 'cause it included new player races, but a lot of monster stats. They then did Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which was nearly all player-based stuff, so new rules and new downtime rules and loads of character subclasses. Yeah. Then they did Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which was very similar to Volo's Guide, a few player bits and pieces you could add in, really expanding details on particular aspects, like it goes into the Blood War, it goes into demons and devils and then elves and things like that. Again, included some new race choices, but then loads of monsters. Okay. So the fact you've said there's so many subclass options makes me think they're going to do another version of Xanathar's, which is loads more player options and loads more things everyone can add to the game. So it's not just half the book of the other books is for the DM only. Could
also include some of the information from the Essentials kit, which I can see over your shoulder, because the Essentials kit has the sidekick rules in it and how to run a game for a duet, which the only way to get hold of that moment is in the Essentials kit, which might not appeal to every gamer, but a whole supplement book that might.
However, I would say that Essentials kit is an absolute bargain for what's in it.
Yes, you did mention that, didn't you?
It is full of content. I mean, it's bursting at the seams. The other thing I remember hearing, when Xanathar's Guide came out, it was something daft, like it was the fastest and biggest selling book for Dungeons and Dragons that had ever been released.
Really?
So fastest selling book that had ever been released. Yeah, it's sold quicker than
hotcakes.
Yeah, than the printing of 5th edition. Of course, 5th edition books have sold the most, but this was like in a short period of time, it sold the fastest. And I don't think if Mordenkainen's sold as quick as that, which makes me think they're going to try and push for another one of those books because it's all player options. So you think if it's just say a group's got 4 players and 1 DM. Well, you buy a book that's full of monsters. Well, you've got one person who wants to buy it.
Of course.
You buy options for players. That's 5 people who'll probably want to buy that book.
Can't fault that maths there, Steve. Can't fault it.
No.
Okay. Well, time will tell. I'm sure an announcement will come soon, but I'm not going to bet against you, to be honest with you.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to announce it because they made a big deal this summer of the Descent into Avernus announcement.
Yeah. It was at D&D Live, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was a massive deal. They made a big show of it, a big conference with loads of sessions going on, but there's big unveiling of what the storyline is and all the other products they were going to release with it. So it'll be interesting to know if they're going to do something similar to that in next year's D&D Live. I think they probably will. I think it worked out quite well for them this year.
Yes, I think so. Sticking with RPGs, there's a new one from a very well-known publisher of Wendy's. Right.
I saw this and I am baffled. Have you actually looked at this, though?
I have. I've looked at it. I've downloaded the free 95-page rulebook and campaigns.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah, just to have a punt at it. But it's even the website, it suggests that you should really play it at a Wendy's, and then maybe if you get peckish during it, order your Wendy's, and you can order it online as well to be delivered to you. And there's one little tagline which says, "And remember, no matter what happens, eat Wendy's. I mean, have fun." I don't know how to take it because it's an American burger fast food chain that isn't in the UK. They tried to do a startup back in 2016. I had to look it up to try and work out if I could visit a Wendy's to go and play this in, just to get the full aesthetic. But there isn't one in the UK. It's never happened. It's unlikely to happen.
No, I think most of them don't seem to have had much success in trying to come over here. Five Guys is the only one that's kind of had any kind of success, hasn't it?
I don't even know Five Guys. That's a new thing for me.
Have you not been to a Five Guys?
No.
Oh, it's simple, right? You get a mortgage out, right?
Right, okay, yeah.
Then you go buy a burger, which is in fact like 6 patties of beef.
Right.
Right. And then you ask for a small fries, and they get a bin bag. And they start filling it with chips for you.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. They're really, really nice burgers, and it's proper fast food service, but it's like 15 quid for a burger, fries, and a milkshake or whatever.
Crikey.
Which is that kind of standard. And I'm not kidding, it is like a brown paper bag, full, like a Tesco carrier bag size bag, full of fries, and it's covered in this seasoning, so they're salty as hell. So you go for more of the drink. It's really tasty, but it's bloody expensive.
No, right, okay, that's not for me, I don't think. As a kind of almost vegetarian, pass as well.
Fair enough.
There's loads of other news, but if you want to read and know about it, read the News Collider, because there's literally loads of news.
And besides, we're here to talk about Essen today.
Stuff the news, yeah. John's not here. We can be as unprofessional regarding this news nonsense as we like.
So yes, the main purpose for today's podcast was supposed to be to talk about our preview games of games coming out in Essen Spiel 2019, which by the time you're listening to this will be just over a week away, about a week and a half, because it usually starts on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've got a lot of games to talk about, because if you look at the geek lists, of course, the big shows like Essen and Gen Con, Board Game Geek put together a geek list, which is a list of all the games which are going to be there. Now, it's not the games coming out, and this is the bit which is often confusing. It's the games that are going to be there, so it could be for sale, it could be for demo. Sometimes it's just the publisher said it's going to be there, and it ends up not being there. I mean, we've been caught a foul on this at UK Games Expo and things like that in the past. So there's no guarantee that anything we say at the moment will definitely be there, and there's certainly no guarantee that it'll be for sale. or have enough in stock. And trying to keep on track of what is available is actually quite hard work, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to say is this geek list, which is on Board Game Geek, has, at last count, over 1,100 items on there.
Bloody hell.
Now, some of them are duplicates. So, for instance, if a game is out in English and German, it'll have 2 separate items on this list. So, I think if you do like a quick skim and get rid of all the non-English things, it's still something ridiculous, like 650 games being released in English.
Wow.
It's an astronomical amount. It's just, the mind boggles.
And that's just in one weekend. So that's 650-ish games printed in English, released over one weekend.
As I said, whether they're released or not is a different thing, because what happens with these lists is you start to see repeats. So you start to see things that, it'll be on the Expo list, the Gen Con list, and the Essen list. So there are a few things where we've seen them or what have you. And in fact, we'll start by saying there was a few things we've played recently, which are going to be at Essen. So we'll start with one I know you've played, which is I have played this week, Tungaru.
Oh, yes, which I played it. It was called Marquisas. It wasn't called that. It was called something like Marquisas.
Yes, I remember having this issue when you talked about it in my episodes.
But it's now called what? Tungaru.
I've got to double check because I think it's called Tungaru, but the fact that it's changed, I think it's actually changed while we've been playing it as well, which is a bit annoying. The rulebook certainly has, anyway. So this is a game from Alley Cat Games. This is called Tungaru. It's from Alley Cat Games. It's coming to Kickstarter very soon. My understanding, it's going to be on show for demoing at Essen, and it's all about Polynesian islands. What you're doing is you're collecting people off these islands. I say people because the original version had collecting huts.
Okay.
You're now collecting people. There's very little difference in the rules with that regard because all the huts have been turned into people, but you're moving a little boat around these islands, which where your boat is affects which islands you can interact with. And it's a dice drafting game, so your little boat will have your dice on there. And then you can place these dice to take actions. So bit like a worker placement, but your actions allow you to do certain things, and the value on the dice may affect which actions you can take. It's not really limiting too much. There's a couple of places where you kind of go, oh, damn it, if I had a 6, I could do this, or I had a 3, I could do that. But it doesn't feel like you're being completely tied up by what's on these dice.
So you're not at the mercy at them?
Yeah, I mean, they affect your choices, but you don't feel as if you're being restricted by them too much.
Okay.
Well, the aim of the game is to collect these people, and these people you add to your little village are your victory points and your victory point conditions.
Okay.
So it may be you get X amount of victory points for every person you've collected. So if you collect 2 of these people that have these victory point conditions, you'll double that up. There's a little set collection one where if you collect these flowers around the board, you will get bonuses for that one. Yep. And there's also ones where, because you can do other things, you've got, like, in the demo version, we've got the little cylinders of influence, but in the final version, they're going to be little totem pole kind of things.
Cool. And
what you'll get victory points for if you put them out. So what you're doing is the victory points you get change every game because of how you're collecting these people. And that is, you collect people, get victory points for what you do with them, and you've got to choose how you do it. Do you go for one strategy? Do you go for a smorgasbord of different things? I've only managed to play 1 or 2 games of it, so it's kind of like one teaching and one real game. Yeah. And I've only managed to play it 2 players so far. I'm desperately trying to get like a 3 or 4 player game in because I think the game's going to change a bit. You have played this as well, haven't you?
Yeah, Andy and I had a demo of this during the expo on the Saturday afternoon just before the close. Andy and I both really liked it. Now, it sounds like the game's moved on a little bit since we played it, but we really enjoyed it. One of the aspects which I don't think you haven't mentioned there was the role selection, the 7 cards.
Yes.
See, that was something that really resonated with me. I really enjoyed it. So every player has a set of 7 cards, and they're all the same. And each turn you select one of them. So you can have the chieftain or the beggar. I remember being 2 examples. And that will give you specific rule bending abilities for that round. However,
yeah, like the fisher will give you extra fish. Yeah. The beggar allows you to steal stuff off other people. Well, they have to give you stuff.
That's it. Yeah.
The trader allows you to do better trade deals. They're all almost like a special ability you can do each round.
But the interesting thing I liked about these is that everybody plays one, And then at the end of the turn, you pass your card on to the player on the left, which means if I choose my beggar, I'm going to be giving my beggar to you at the next turn to give you more opportunities to kind of string these together later on to be at a greater effect. So it's kind of everybody chooses it face down. You all flip over. What have you got? And you know what you've got coming. So I know that if Andy's chosen a chief, next turn I'll have 2 chiefs in my hand to make really good effect. And I really liked that because I thought that was a really nice and a very different type of player interaction that kind of happened just above the game, which kind of helped you at kind of a more strategic level.
I'm feeling a little bit underwhelmed by it, unfortunately. I feel as if it's lacking something, and I don't know what. I mean, it all fits together and works very nicely, and you've got various resources. You've got fish, coconuts, and pearls, and shellfish that you have to collect to do the different things. It seems to be lacking that little bit of pressure which I crave to make me really think about a game.
Okay.
And that sounds like a weird criticism in a way, because it's like, it's a much nicer game than probably I genuinely like.
Okay.
Which is really, makes me feel really bad, that does actually.
So you're saying there's no dick move options in this?
There's very little way, I mean, apart from the beggar, which can screw someone over by taking their resources they need, there's very little way in which you can negatively impact. Because, I mean, even to get to certain islands, every single island's got a couple of places of where you can get on there. Someone might take something before you, might take one of the people you need, but there's no. It wasn't just there's no dick move. There isn't a huge amount of I'm going to directly influence you, which is what a lot of people are after in this kind of game.
Okay.
I thought there was, I gave it a nickname in one written review I did. It's a kind of like when your lack of options make you really think about what you're going to do.
Okay.
And I feel as if I think Tungaru didn't have that, as I said, didn't have that pressure. Didn't have that feeling like, oh my God, I've only got 2 options, I need to do 4 kind of thing.
Okay, so you didn't feel like you were boxed in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just because I wasn't playing against someone who was working at a higher level to me or what, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, and as a complete aside, I introduced my wife to Great Western Trail this last couple of weeks.
Okay.
And she absolutely loved it because of that very reason. Because she could trundle along and do her thing going down the trail. And apart from maybe someone taking one of the cows out of the marketplace before she wanted it, there wasn't much in which you could really influence what other people were doing.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So she could kind of play her own game and carry on, if that makes sense.
Okay, and you think Tungaru kind of fits into that same bracket?
Yeah, I think it does, yeah. As a comparison to, say, like, a couple of episodes back, we were talking about Barrage, and Barrage is just constantly going, oh, I can't do this because I don't have the resources. It's definitely a case of, oh, no, I'm going to grab some pearls, and I'm going to grab that, and I should be able to grab that person kind of thing, and that should do nicely.
Well, put it in the company of Great Western Trail. That's not bad company to be in.
No, true.
No.
So that was Tungaru. I believe a demo of that will be available, and it's coming to Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter's actually going to launch while Essen's on during the Essen weekend.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Momentum then. One of the games we've been sent to look at. This is actually a final copy of the game because the Tungaru we've got is an early prototype, but this is a full game. Is and I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Trismegistus.
Yes. Which is thrice majestic, as I learned recently.
I
was listening to the Stephen Fry Mythos audiobook, which is his version, his telling of the Greek myths. And Trismegistus is a term or a word that's associated with Hermes, the messenger god. I can't remember anything more of that, but yeah, thrice majestic is what it actually means.
Okay. Well, this is Trismegistus, which is a potion formulating dice drafting game from the designer of Tzolk'in and Teotihuacan.
Yes.
So he has got past form in making games which are impossible to pronounce.
Yes. Is it Daniel Taschini?
Taschini?
Yeah, I'm going to mispronounce it as well, so I'm just going to stop.
So the other designer is Federico Pierre Lorenzi.
I can only apologise for our flat Anglo tongues, everybody.
Yes. this game is really quite interesting. I would class it as a rather heavy Euro because there's a lot going on.
Shocker.
So what you're doing is you are drafting these dice come out, and the dice have got all these different symbols for chemical elements. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is you are trying to develop different formulas to make potions.
Right.
That's it, its simplest form. So think of it like the heavy Euro version of Potion Explosion.
Okay, yeah, no, that's bob on. Yeah.
It's actually not far off. So what you're doing is, to do your actions is quite clever. So all these dice this big bucket full of dice get rolled, and they all go into pools based on the symbols or on the dice. And when you grab a dice, because that's what you do at the beginning of your turn usually, you get a number of points, the potency as it calls, the power of that dice, depending on how many dice are in that pool at that time. So if you get a dice they're all got squiggly symbols, let's just call it squiggly S. So right. All the dice, there's 5 dice there with the squiggly S symbol, so you take a dice and it goes into slot 5 because there were 5 dice. But if someone else later in the round goes and takes a squiggly S dice, they're only going to get 4 because there are only 4 dice left.
Right, okay, yeah. So
you're encouraged to take dice which are at the higher level because you can do more things with them. That's basically your currency. And you use the power of that dice to do your actions, and how many times you can do things on your turn are based on that power rating, basically, because each time you do it, close down a little counter.
Okay.
And what you're doing with that is grabbing a basic essence, which is this basic element, and then refining it. And refining it goes for this little, it's like a little map on your board of little tubes that filter into different elements. And what you're supposed to be doing is you're an alchemist, so you're changing base elements. So you eventually go from, I can't remember what it is, but you go for a couple of elements and you get to mercury, silver, then gold. So the final one in the step is gold, and gold is the wild card. It can be used for absolutely everything. But you're trying to manipulate these chemicals to get the requirements of your potion, which you cash in, and that gets you victory points. I mean, that's its very simplest level.
Right.
Because in order to do that, you need these essence tokens, and then you have to take actions to get the essence tokens, which build you up on these tracks. If you've played Sulkin or Teotihuacan, you'll recognize these tracks straight away, and these tracks represent how good you are at doing these chemical reactions. And then you've got these little tokens which slot into your board, which if you do a chemical reaction which goes past the token, you can fire off that special ability. Then you've got these other little tokens where if you complete a potion, this token comes onto your board, and it's a little wooden chit, and that's got special ability in it as well. And if you get special abilities in a row, that fires off another ability, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. So there's an awful lot going on.
I followed about half of that.
Don't worry, you got about as far as I did on my first game.
So it sounds complicated.
It is complicated, which is made a hell of a lot worse by a major problem.
Okay.
The rulebook for this game is f***ing awful.
There's the F-bomb, folks. There it is.
It is absolutely atrocious. It doesn't take the time to explain a lot of the concepts in this game.
Okay.
So it doesn't explain cards. The cards are covered in symbology, and there's nowhere like in the front of the rulebook that says, right, this is a potion card, these are requirements, these are skill levels, these are rewards. No, you've got to work that out for yourself.
No.
It says there's a point in the rulebook, and this is really fascinating. There's a point in the rulebook where it says, you set out and you've got 3 levels of potion decks. So what happens is as the game goes on, you play the game over 3 phases, and you use different potion cards during these 3 phases. So they get more complicated to make, and they're worth more points. However, it says just deal them out into the spots. And the spots are big enough to hold 2 cards because they're little books. And I've seen a photograph of the guys of Board and Dice, the publisher playing this, who've put 1 card on each slot. And I've seen the video that Heavy Cardboard have made where they put 2 cards in each slot because it fits.
Yes, it's like each page of a book. Okay.
Yeah. The rulebook doesn't say deal 1 card to each slot or deal 2 cards to each slot. It just says deal cards to the slots.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just minor things. There's loads of things like this in it. The one that really got me was the page called Often Forgotten Rules. And the first rule it says, it's like, I haven't forgotten that. I'm sure you have not mentioned that rule before in this rule book.
Is it like a frequently asked questions? How do I play this game?
For such a complicated game, it's quite bad that this rulebook is... It looks like it's a rulebook that's been written by someone who knows the game in and out and doesn't realise that someone coming in from this completely new is going to have these questions.
Okay.
I have a funny feeling that the Building Dice are going to have to either write a new rule book soon, or someone like a fan's going to have to do one, because there's the potential of this being a really, really good game, and that rule book could ruin the potential.
He's going to put a big handbrake on that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like the one I'm going to have to wait for somebody else to kind of decipher it and probably do a how to play video.
Yeah.
And I just got to hope that they're very thorough.
Well, I hope that they've got it right. I hope that they've interpreted the rulebook correctly.
That's the other thing I hope as well. Okay. So that was Trismegistus from Board and Dice.
So a couple of other games that we've also played that I've noticed on the list. Another one from Board and Dice, which is Escape Tales, which is their new one, because the first one was Escape Tales The Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
This one is, I've already forgotten the name.
Low Memory. Ironically.
I was going to edit that out, but I think I'll keep that in now. Yes, Escape Tales Low Memory. If you played Escape Tales The Awakening, it is more of the same, which is not a bad thing.
Not at all.
It is an escape room style game. It's got a tutorial and then 3 modules in the box. Mm. It's really quite simple. You've got this nice little stress mechanism where you've got so many actions you can take, and each time you take actions, you put tokens on the board, which releases stress counters, which have negative effects the more stress you use. So you are encouraged to try and be frugal with your actions if you can.
Yes, and very careful with your decision making.
Yeah,
is that because you've got to move around this board, placing the board or cards rather. Placing your tokens down, that'll tell you which section of the storybook to read. And if you go to somewhere, if you go look at a plant pot, it'll just say, it's a plant pot.
Yeah.
What were you expecting, really? So, which you do feel a little bit / a lot stupid when you do that. But,
yeah, and it's app-based as well, which is really cool as well. So you've got a book which gives you all the chapters to read, but when you enter the puzzles, you enter the codes into this very simple web-based app. So you don't even need to download the app. You can all do it from a website, which is quite nice as well.
That's really good. Yeah, I like that. I really enjoyed the Escape Tales. One of the things, and I've only played an early prototype that I picked up during the UK Games Expo, but as I understand it, Low Memory, you actually get to play the game 3 times from 3 different character point of views, which converge to tell a story. But you can play any. I could be wrong here, but you can play any of the 3 characters in any order you like, and you don't have to play them all the way through as one. So you can do essentially chapter 1 as Bob, and then chapter 1 as Terry, and in each one you will learn tidbits that'll help infer the story and enrich the story of the other kind of characters that you assume. So it's this weaving narrative between these 3 characters as they're experiencing this problem that they need to escape from. And I'm really keen to actually play the full thing all the way through. As much as I enjoyed Escape Tales, it does have that once you've played it, you can only really explore the bits that you didn't see and make other choices. This one is going to open that up a lot more and give you a lot more playtime. And it's a small box. It's going to have a relatively small price tag and give you an awful lot of story and puzzle from it.
So a couple of the games we have played, I didn't realise these were coming out of this until I double-checked the list. So I don't know if you played Bar Pig, did you?
No, missed that one.
Expo. So Bar Pig After Hours, a couple of us played that at Expo. To be honest, Bar Pig is a drinking game without the drinking.
Right, okay.
So it's one of those things where I'm trying to think of an example now without grabbing the box and looking through it. But it's almost like silly games. Like one of the rounds, one player had to choose their Fortress of Solitude, and then the other players had to come away in which they'd attack it and invade it.
Okay.
It was like, and silly things, and one person's the judge each round. So there's a couple of you can play a couple of like take that cards you can do, which can stop and screw around points. But then there's lots of silly. It's almost like a party game, but it's very much a drinking game. It's set to be, it's called Bar Pig. All the characters are fantasy pigs, basically, with sort of a play on words. It's like Sir Bacon a lot or something like that.
Right.
Then After Hours is like the first expansion for it. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this, because when it was described to me, I thought, oh my god, what have I let myself into? I'm going to hate this. But playing it, I actually had a lot more fun than I thought it deserved in a way. Because it was.
So is it all like an imaginative game. So it says like you're in a how do you survive the zombie apocalypse, and someone says this is how I do it, and then the other people go this is how I'm going to eat your brain.
So what you do is you get your characters, and your characters each have a special like tests involved with them. So it might be they're not. Sorry, I got it wrong. They're not pig-related jokes. They're beer-related jokes. So it's the Berserker and the Apothecary.
Apothecary. Oh, that's golden.
And instead of instead of the Musketeer, the Muscatini.
Naturally, what else would it be?
So, like I said, the Muscatini one. It's like hold your hand in front of you, shouting a ridiculous word as a cheer. All other players must touch their hands with yours whilst repeating the word. The last player to do so loses a point.
Wicked.
So it's really silly, quick things like that. Yeah.
Ideal. Yeah, it's an ideal drinking game, isn't it?
And in which you actually, your player gets more drunk as the character game goes on, and the last one standing wins, basically. But yeah, It is a drinking game with rules. So the other one I wanted to mention was Chakra. Again, got given a copy of this at Expo.
Now, this is the one that looked really, really pretty. It had fantastic artwork.
It is very, very pretty, yes. It's got these kind of beautiful drawn kind of fairies on it, which is weird because the artwork and the game are almost disconnected.
Oh.
It's a very abstract game. What you've got to do is you've got to get so many coloured tokens. You've got coloured tokens into the right spots on your board. So basically, you've got to realign your chakra.
Okay.
And what you do is it's a set of actions whereby certain actions will move a token down 2 spots. Another action will swap 2 colours. One will move it up. And once you've got 3 colours of the right colour into a spot, that kind of locks off and you get, I think it's a special ability gets off.
Okay.
So even though it looks pretty, that's nothing to do with the game. It's actually this really quite abstract thing of, take this action to move this token up, take that action to move these down, make that action to swap, take that action to move these in.
Oh.
And if you get too many black tokens on your board, then that's bad, so you have to try and get rid of them by moving them down the board because they clog it up. But it's got this little pool mechanic as well, so when you're grabbing these tokens to put them on, they're taken from this little pool of 5, so sometimes you'll have to take crap you don't want because the thing you do want kind of thing.
Right, okay. Everything you've just said makes me really want to play this game. It sounds like it's right up my street.
Yeah, it's easy. It's I think actually it is the kind of game you'd like. It's really simple actually, and it's really easy to play.
What are you trying to say, Steve?
No, I don't mean like that. But it's weird. It's nice, but at the same time, it's nothing earth-shattering, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Definitely worth a look.
Man just looked something up on internet. So who's this place? Publisher is Blam. I might have a look at that. 2 to 4 players. Okay.
Those are the things we've actually played.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a couple of things that are coming to Essen which I wouldn't say piqued their interest, but have piqued their interest so much we've already bought them or pre-ordered them or what have you.
Yeah.
Barrage, for instance, is cropping up on these Essen lists, and we mentioned that 2 episodes ago because me and Andy have played that.
Sounds great.
Pipeline is propping up again on these Essen lists. We actually mentioned it last year, but I think most people have already got copies of that by the sounds of it.
Yep, sounds like it.
Tapestry from Stonemaier Games is on this list.
I've heard some fantastic things about Tapestry.
We are waiting for Mr. Lewis to invite us all to play this.
Hang on. In that picture he sent us of the games he's taken away, was Tapestry in there? Could we not just go break into his place and raid his game cupboard?
You have to get past his cats, though.
Okay. I'll take a dog.
Fair enough.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. There's also On Mars, which both me and Andy have backed the Kickstarter.
I didn't realise you'd backed that one.
Yeah, proper English should be Andy and I have backed the Kickstarter.
Course, yeah. And this is the one where Andy backed this one and every other Vital Lacerda game, is it? There was
an add-on. You could actually buy other Vital Lacerda games at the same time, and Andy did. He bought every single one available. That was part of my weekend, my eye-watering postal weekend.
Mm.
And I shudder to think how much he paid. Have you heard about my eye-watering postal weekday?
No. Your eye-watering post all day.
So I backed a load of Kickstarters in reasonable short succession.
Right.
And it was the Anachrony expansion, which I was just about to mention, but that was at Expo, and me and Andy have backed that. It was on Mars. It was the Bloodborne game. It was Kingdom Rush. And it was one other, and I can't remember the other. And all the backer kits kind of finalised at roughly the same time.
Oh.
And so I paid for the postage on all these games on the same day. It was one of those days where I was like, oh, God, these backer kits are there. I really need to get around to sorting these backer kits. So I sat down one morning, it was a Saturday morning, and just did all the backer kits. And that day I spent over £120 in postage and packing.
Bloody hell. Oh, my goodness.
Kind of like, oh, my God. Because it just all came at once, you know. It was like 30 quid here, 30 quid there, tenner there, 30 quid there. Like, oh my God. I spent 30 quid of posting and packing on some of these games. It's shocking.
I don't know how it costs so much sometimes. Well, I do. It's got to be made in China and then shipped halfway around the world and then delivered from Southampton. I understand that takes a bit of kind of money and power and whatnot, but still, 30 quid to deliver a £40 game. Although, well,
no, one of the 30 quids was definitely Bloodborne, which is, you know, they'll be using a forklift to drive it up to my house.
Oh.
That's games we've either seen or have already bought. Let's have a look at some games we know next to nothing about and are generally excited for.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, right, okay. Man shuffles paper on his desk. My notes.
Do we need the news music again, do we? As you're there shuffling the papers.
I think I should have the news music almost as a default ringtone. I've told you, just on a slight aside, when for the expo, I was making those little videos and I downloaded the Polyhedron Collider music theme tune that we use. And so I've got that on my phone. And then next time I set like a timer on my phone to like do a boiled egg, for some reason, it had defaulted to that tune. But now, my kids have got to the point where their dinner's ready, but it has to cool down. So he goes, Logan says, do the circle on your phone. So I put a timer of like 90 seconds on, and it goes, and he sits there and watches this clock go down. And then the PHC music comes on, and then we all four of us, have to break out dancing because dinner's ready. True story.
Oh dear.
Pretty much every day we listen to that theme tune and have a dance around the living room kitchen because we're about to have dinner. Talking of dinner, my first pick is So You've Been Eaten.
Oh. Now this is crazy, this one. This is a bit bonkers, isn't it?
It looks flipping fantastic. So You've Been Eaten. It's been published. It's going to be by Ludi Creations, designed by Scott Ulms, who did the Tiny Epic series of games, amongst many others. And it is an asymmetric two-player game where one person is a miner, a space miner, and you're after some very precious crystals. However, these crystals are in the belly of a giant space monster, which is the other player. So one person is the miner who has to try and retrieve crystals, and it's a set collection style thing going on there as you're trying to desperately chisel away at these, as the monster is developing bacteria and trying to kill you.
That sounds pretty cool.
Which sounds ace in itself. One of the things that did make me laugh out loud when I read this in the office the other day, because I was on my lunch break, honest boss, both players are trying to do this before the second end condition pops up, which is called number 2, which is where the miner is passed through the system, at which point it becomes whoever has the most points. So, I mean, I love two-player games. I love games that have multiple win conditions. I love asymmetry. And this game can also be played two-player, one player, or actually with no players.
How does that work?
So, I want to play this as the miner. So there is an Ultima for the space monster, naturally. And then I want to play another game as the space monster. So there is an Ultima for the miner. So you can then actually play one Ultima against the other Ultima and just flip over the cards or roll dice or whatever it is you're doing. And to actually see which Ultima wins. And you will have a different result continually as they play off against each other. And I'm really interested in the game, but I'm also really interested to sit and play a game that I'm not actually playing.
That must be intriguing. I can imagine that'd be quite useful for learning how the game plays as well.
I think it's going to be ace. I think
just do this autumn and see who wins.
Yeah, and it's a relatively small box game, so it's in the vein of Seven Wonders Duel. It's going to be about €20. You can pre-order it, I think, on the website now. It looks bonkers. It's actually, the artwork is by Kwanchai Moriana, who did the Dinosaur Island, Bosque, Prêt-à-Porter, Cryptid. He's got that really distinct artwork style, so it's going to look absolutely stunning on your shelf and on the table. And it sounds bonkers and brilliant.
Okay.
And that's my top pick. So You've Been Eaten.
Top pick. Okay. Now I've not got top picks. I've not got them in any order.
Oh.
So I do apologise. No, that's my fault.
I apologise for being so organised to actually rank.
Well, if we're going to go, what I'll do is I'll fly off. I'll kind of like react to what you've said. So I'm going to go for my absolute batshit crazy game.
Okay.
Because now let me explain the story behind this game before I explain its name. All right. So the game, the story of this game is you're on a cruise, and then you go basically through the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
And end up on a mystery island as a castaway, struggling survival, and there's dinosaurs everywhere.
Okay. That sounds like a children's TV show, to be honest with you.
It does sound like a children's TV program. This is, in fact, a Euro dice drafting game.
Matching theme to mechanics.
About building a city and a civilization from the remnants of this cruise ship and training dinosaurs to do your tasks.
I'm sorry, Steve. That just doesn't sound like a real game. It just doesn't sound like a real game.
I've dreamt this. This is Perseverance. Perseverance Castaway Chronicles, it's called. Now, I don't know to what extent this is going to be at Essen. I've heard a rumour that actually it might not even be there at all because the Kickstarter isn't coming out until next year. But it's cropping up on all these Essen lists, and there's loads of pictures of the artwork. And it's by Mind Clash Games, who brought Tracherion and Anachrony and Cerebria. So I am basically all over this because it looks absolutely bonkers in the nuts. Tracherion, I mean, Andy's got Tracherion. I haven't got it because I thought, well, I don't need it as Andy's got it. I've got Anachrony. Anachrony is probably my favourite Euro game ever. If this even touches, if it is half as good as Anachrony, I'm all over this. It just sounds utter nuts.
Just the opening line on BGG is mental. It does sound like it could be a children's TV show. Yeah.
Now, as I said, I don't know how much of this is actually going to be at Essen. I can imagine we'll be mentioning this in next year's Essen preview or something daft like that. Yeah. Because I don't think actually it's going to be on sale, but it is appearing on all these lists. So I've included it because it is the game which has caught my attention so much.
I can understand why it caught anyone's attention.
Oh, it's also got this weird almost legacy system.
You're pulling my leg.
No. The game has 5 episodes, which are kind of like a narrative thematic scenarios. But you don't have to play the scenarios one after another, so there's no actual legacy elements. Okay. You don't destroy items and you don't unbox things. You can, if you want to, play these episodes completely standalone. And what they do is as my understanding is, they increase in complexity.
Right.
So the idea is that each game introduces new mechanics. So the 5th scenario is like the full game with all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Your face says everything at this point. As I said, it sounds absolutely bonkers. It's got exploration, it's got adventure, it's got dice placement. It's it's got dinosaurs which you can tame. I mean, what's not to like?
Do you know? Bizarrely, right? This reminds me of Baba.
Baba?
Do you remember Baba? The elephant that gets lost in the South Africa and then he visits a city and then goes back to the wilderness and decides, I'm going to build an elephant city. For some reason, I'm thinking it's kind of like that, but with dinosaurs and a luxury cruise liner.
Well, maybe that's the retheme. The mass market retheme for it.
Oh, right. Okay. I think we should probably stop the podcast there because I'm not going to be able to top that. That has completely thrown me. Right. My number two pick.
So everything's a bit mundane after that now. Everything else is your bog standard Euro after that.
Yeah. So, I think this is a game that John is going to love, and I was quite surprised that it didn't make his kind of list when we were talking about this over the last couple of weeks before he was obviously being ill tonight. But this is Eco's First Continent from AEG. So the reason I think he's going to like this is because it's designed by John D. Clare, who did Space Base. And John has a big... And there are, as I've been kind of investigating Ecos, I can see some familiar threads coming through this. This is, you're going to be playing as forces of nature and going to be shaping this modular board. And there's going to be a bag with tiles in it, and they pull the tiles out, and that's going to give you the elements that you're going to be working with. You're going to be building this little engine to try and shape the land, literally shape this continent. You're going to be adding mountain ranges, you're going to be adding flora and fauna, adding seas, more landmass, and you're going to be playing off one another as you do this to try and achieve your personal goals. There's points where if you are unable to take tiles, you're going to rotate cards to rotate your kind of your action card that's going to give you more abilities. It looks from a visual point of view, it looks absolutely stunning. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting engine builder type game, and I love the theme as well. This kind of natural conservation exploration game kind of is ticking a lot of boxes for me. It is available for pre-order and pick up at Essen. It's going to be around 60 odd quid. Yeah, I like it. I think it's going to be simple but with lots of complexity, and the choices are going to be kind of escalating as the game progresses. Yeah, nice.
Okay, interesting. Okay. I can see the appeal of that one. It does look very pretty as well, doesn't it? It
does look really nice. It's Sabrina Miramon who's done the art for this, who did Quadropolis, Photosynthesis, Dice Hospital, and a load of other games. And I really love kind of the artwork that she brings to a game. It makes it very earthy and very accessible. And AEG, earlier this year, they released that statement about only releasing great games, games spending longer in development.
It's a bold statement to make, that is, as well.
It really was, but since releasing that statement, they've released, was it Tiny Towns, which is a fantastic game that I nearly bought at the weekend again.
That might end up being a 4 for 4, that one.
Yeah, I probably would have bought that had I not also bought that other game that's in the corner of the room that you pointed out was on a fantastic sale.
Yes. We mentioned in the previous podcast.
Terra Mystica. Whoopsie. Not Terra Mystica. Yeah, it is. Terra Mystica.
No, Terra Mystica. Cool. Yeah, that's now a 2 for 2 because John bought that on Saturday as well.
Did he?
Yeah. We went out and saw John. We were back at mine and we were making the girls some tea because they wanted to watch Strictly. So me and John said, we don't want to watch Strictly. We'll play Gloomhaven.
Right.
So I'm making some food. I'm just waiting for something. And John said, I'm very tempted by that deal. And I said, that Terra Mystica deal was a fantastic deal. And I look up and he's on his phone. He goes, done. Ordered.
Yeah, so it was what, 60% off here in the UK with £2.39 delivery.
Ridiculous, yeah. Right, so let's get on to some more shiny new games. So the other game which has really caught my eye, and probably the one I think is definitely going to be there and one I'm definitely interested in is, and I'm going to pronounce this, another one I'm going to pronounce wrong, The Defense of Procyon 3, or Procyon 3. I'm not quite sure if it's a hard C or a soft C. Now, this is a game from David Turksey, or as Andy would say, Big Davey T.
Big Davey T.
Which is designer of many games, like Anachrony, Kitchen Rush are kind of my two favourites for him. This is coming from PSC Games, which is the Plastic Soldier Company.
Yep.
What this is a big sci-fi battle game.
Nice.
And This is designed to actually be a 4-player game, so this is the one downside to this game, in my opinion. It is a 4-player game.
Oh, you can't play it any less than 4?
Well, you can, but I'll get to that in a second.
Oh.
So you're going to do it in teams. So one player on each side is playing the ground forces, and one player on each side is playing the space forces. So what's happening is basically 2 battles are happening at the same time: the battle on the ground and the battle for the skies.
Okay.
So think about your typical kind of Star Wars E40K kind of thing. There's troops on the ground getting the objectives, and the spaceships in sky battling it out.
All over it. Sounds awesome.
It does sound awesome. Now, what it does have is it has special rules for a 2-player game, but the 2-player game is just the ground forces.
Oh.
So it kind of abstracts out the space stuff so you can concentrate on the ground forces. Now, it's supposed to be asymmetrical. It's going to have a ground hex board, which suggests to me it's going to have some kind of variable board. And it's going to be a card-driven, and it's supposed to be very low-luck based. So it's supposed to be very much a strategic game where you're not relying on dice for combat resolution or things like that. Now, it's not going to be cheap because it's going to be full of miniatures by the sounds of it, but it's made by a company called the Plastic Soldier Company. That's to be expected. However, I would say what they've done in the past has not been too expensive, so don't expect like millions of ridiculous miniatures. I think it's going to be quite realistic, quite affordable, should we say, based on what I've seen of their stuff so far. So I'm really fascinated by this. I've known about this for some time, actually, because David did send us some details of all the games he was working on this year. And I was kind of like, my first reply was like, will you send me details of this immediately? And he kind of went, no, I will not.
Oh.
Big tease.
Right, okay, yeah, I'm all over that one.
So that's the Defense of Procyon 3 from Plastic Soldier Company.
Okay, I think number 3, it's a 3rd edition. It is Prêt-à-Porter from Portal Games. I have quite a bit of backer's regret on this one. So obviously this is the 3rd edition of this game, so lots of people may already heard about it, know about it, may in fact own earlier editions. But this one, it just really does sing to me. Again, it's got one of the most kind of captivating things about this, again, is the art, which again includes Kwanchai Moria. It's designed by Ignacy Cevicek. I kind of like his stuff he does. So this is a kind of heavy Euro game set in the world of fashion. Where you are a fashion house and you are trying to develop your lines, you're trying to gain new designers, you're trying to build up shops and your catalogue to then put on a fashion show which happens every quarter. It's a really, really cutthroat game. It's quite vicious from everything I understand about it. I've watched plenty of playthroughs, some rules explanations. It's got worker placement, action selection, and it's all driven at this kind of, you've got these quarterly kind of fashion shows, which is going to dictate everything that's going to happen after that. You're going to be trading off your stars or your prestige for more power and more influence in the next town, and going to be stealing it from other players. It just looks and sounds absolutely brilliant, and I'm kicking myself for not having the 50-60 quid when this was in Kickstarter. And it was only a couple of months ago that this was on Kickstarter. It was the first time that Portal Games have gone to Kickstarter with a game as well. Do
you know the story behind that?
I think I do, but from the look of your face,
okay. So, well, this is quite interesting because there was rumours about a year, maybe 2 years ago, that Portal were going to re-release this game but reskin it.
Okay.
So this rumour was that the story was that the theme of a fashion house was not selling the game, so it didn't do very well, even though it's a game which has got it's got 7.2 rating, which is actually not too bad. It's a well-reviewed game. I've heard a lot of people say it's a great game, but the story is that the theme was not selling the game, so they were going to reskin it as a game about video game development.
Oh, okay.
And basically use the same basic rules, and instead of it being a fashion show, it's like E3 or whatever, and you're showing off the games you're developing. But there was a weird kind of backlash about it, because there was a lot of people kind of going, who didn't know what Prêt-à-Porter was were going to, oh, like an awesome Euro about video game development. That sounds pretty cool. But then a lot of people going, oh, God, why do we have to dumb it down? You know, we've got this really unique theme. Why do we have to make it into something that is not going to, you know, well, why do you have to make it to kind of placate the masses when you've got this theme, which is awesome, and the game's designed around this theme?
Yeah.
So what I heard was the reason why it went to Kickstarter is Ignacy wasn't confident enough that the theme of Prêt-à-Porter was enough to sell the game.
Okay.
So they went to Kickstarter to actually do the whole thing of gauging the response, gauging how popular this is going to be. Right, because it's the first time, and I don't know whether they'll go to Kickstarter again, because this whole thing, never say never, isn't it, for a lot of things. But I kind of get the impression, my understanding is, that's exactly why he went there. It was just to see how many of these he had to make, because he was so uncertain about the popularity of the theme.
Yes, that is exactly the same reason that I thought so as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least we've got... Well, if we're wrong, we've at least got our wrong information from the right place.
I was actually... I was really curious as to what your story was, because that's actually the story Ignacy told me during the press preview of the Expo this year. More or less.
So basically, I've just repeated to you what you probably told me at the Expo anyway.
Yes, it might be that. Yeah, he was unsure. He used Wingspan as an example. If Wingspan had just gone to Jamie and Stonemaier Games ran into some tough ground when they didn't produce enough copies because they didn't know what the demand was going to be for that game. So Ignacy and Portal Games decided they were going to take this to Kickstarter to gauge the audience. Yeah, and that's the example. I love that this game has such a standout theme. It'd be very, I can see the appeal of a games design, video game company game, but the fact that it's fashion, it really does kind of set it head and shoulders kind of above all the other any other economic game.
So that's Prêt-à-Porter from Portal Games.
Mm-hmm.
I have a funny feeling that's going to be a popular one. That is, I think it's a lot more popular than Ignacy was thinking.
Yeah, I think it's going to be on sale for around £50, or when it becomes available, it's going to be £50. I say I'm really regretting not getting the Kickstarter edition of that. I
think when you're talking about Essen, you have to include at least one pretty heavy Euro game in there, don't you? I think so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course.
I think so. So I think we should mention Cooper Island.
Okay.
Which is now I've heard, ironically, I've heard this coming from a couple of separate publishers, and I think it's actually listed as two separate items on Board Game Geek just to confuse matters. So I've seen it's coming from Pegasus Spiel, which means there probably is probably a German distribution.
Yes.
But it's also coming from Capstone Games. Making I didn't really know much about Capstone Games until recently. I mean, Pipeline was from them, so I didn't really know much about them before.
They've got the American distribution for Ragusa as well. That was the first time I heard them when I knew they were teamed up to do Ragusa, and then they did Pipeline, and then Capstone Games just seem to be appearing, flipping everywhere at the moment.
So I must admit, I do not know a huge amount about this game, but I know it is you're exploring a new world. As is generally seems to be a lot of these themes doing this. So you're going onto this new island and you're exploring it. And as you're exploring it, you're basically placing down tiles which show what are on this island. And you're building statues, you're supplying ships, you're getting supplies from the thing. I mean, it sounds like pretty typical heavy Euro kind of thing. But from what I understand, it is quite a complicated game, but in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's got on BGG, it's got a weight rating of 3.67, which is enough to make the numbers dark orange. So that's pretty heavy.
Fair enough.
Okay, yeah, this looks pretty. Capstone and Pegasus Spiel have got a pretty good track rating, in my opinion. I don't know anything about this game. I've been intentionally avoiding other people's lists so I can kind of come on stuff on my own ground.
As I said, it's there's precious little information about how it actually works here, but it looks it's one of those games that looks like an Andy game. Let's be fair, I've put this on the list as an Andy game.
Okay.
I mean, there's tokens and charts and lines and symbology all at the wazoo. It just looks like Andy's going to absolutely love it. And with him not being here, I feel as if I have to channel him and put in some super heavy, dry Euro in there, which this doesn't look that dry because it's nautical based.
Okay, Cooper Island from Pegasus Spiel and Capstone Games. Keep an eye. You think that's good? You think that's going to be quite a hot one from?
I think that's going to be super hot. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the top games of the show.
Really?
Because I mean, we're talking Essen, and Essen is the home of the Euro game. You know, it is home of the heavy Euro, and this looks like a proper decent heavy Euro. I mean, there's a few others that are similar. I got to admit that my choices did kind of blend into one, so I'm going to be cheaty here and actually blend in a couple of us at the same time.
Do you know what? You cheat every time you do one of these lists, Steve.
I know.
Every time.
My podcast, I edit. I'm going to mention this as well. So another one that's like similar is Maracaibo, which is a new game from Alexander Pfister.
Okay.
So he's the designer of Great Western Trail, which we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Which it actually looks a very, very similar theme, but this is you're trading in the Caribbean. So you're moving around the Caribbean and you're grabbing like resources and moving them around. And I've got to admit, there's a part of it that looks like it's a soggy version of Great Western Trail, because there's even a little path. When the little path moves around the board, and these little paths have got little tokens on there, which obviously change in the same way the buildings do.
Yeah.
And you can move the ship around. So there's obviously a little bit of a route moving and taking actions based on where you go. Other than that, again, I have absolutely no idea what's going on, but this is another one I think everyone's going to be going bonkers for it. It's full of colour. It's full of tokens, chits, and charts.
Yeah.
It's another heavy Euro.
And just for your information, it is rated as a 3.6, so it's a slightly not as dark orange as Cooper Island.
So does it go all the way up to red then, does it?
I don't know. I've never seen a 5 rated game. I don't know what the heck. I can't remember seeing a 5 or even a 4 point, anything above a 4.5 actually.
Interesting. I've never really looked at the weight rating on BGG.
Have you not?
No.
I often use that. I find that I'm in a perpetual cycle of introducing games to people.
Right.
And as much as I would really like to play heavier games, I don't have a supply of people that are willing to put up with learning heavier games. So I have to tease them into it. Lower numbers are kind of...
Right.
Lower numbers are easier to teach. Of course they are.
Fair enough.
So you've done your Andy game, so I'm going to do my Andy game, which comes in at number 4, and it is Space Gate Odyssey from, published by, I've forgotten to write the name of the company down. That was clever. I got all this preparation and I've missed a key piece of information. This is another Euro-style game. It's action selection, worker placement, area control going on here. So in this, you are a company and you are trying to get as many colonists from the space station down onto various planets. And to do this, you're going to be funneling them through the station. And it's got a really nice it's called flow management or cascading resources. So you've got this 5 different spots, and you're going to put your engineer on the what looks like a table, and it's going to activate that room, and that's going to allow you to move certain types of colonists into certain rooms or a certain number of spaces. But everyone else that's in that room also gets the benefit of that ability in their space station. So you're trying to make your space station in as succinct a way as possible to get people from the rooms they appear in to the rooms that they're going to essentially teleport down onto the planets. And then you're going to make sure that they teleport onto the planets at a specific location so that they can fill up all the spots on the planet, activating all the special abilities, and then have the majority of control of that planet to kind of gain you points. It comes with a load of planets. You're going to be using 5 that change every game. And it's also got another really interesting mechanic that I love to see and would love to see more of, is this kind of leader hobbling effect. So as you progress through your victory points, you're actually going to lose some of your workers. So as if you make your engine really, really super deluxe and you fly off ahead of everybody else, the further you go ahead, you're going to start losing these engineers, which are the workers that like activate these rooms. And as you progress, you're going to lose first one and then another one. I don't know if you can get them back. I think it looks really nice. Andy and I did talk about this when news of it was released. You know, the next game from Ludonort, that's who are doing it.
Yep.
I really like the look of this.
Now, me and John have looked at the look of this as well because the Secret Cabal mentioned it a few months back.
Did they now?
And both me and John listened to this episode of the Secret Cabal, and both me and John went separately. I really like the sound of this.
Oh, well, I feel like an idiot now because no doubt I didn't do quite as nice a job of describing it as the Secret Cabal did. Do more research,
I would
Rory.
not say that.
That's because you're nice to me.
I really do like the look of this, and I thought this game had already come out, and I've been tempted to buy, but maybe it was just a pre-order then, but I've been tempted to order this for some time. And now you're talking about it, and Andy's talked about it, and John's talked about it. I'm tempted to maybe sneakily order that one.
Yeah.
That was Space Gate Odyssey. It does sound pretty damn cool, I must admit. I'm going to go slightly left field here, and I'm going to choose a party deduction game, which is Paranormal Detectives from Lucky Duck Games.
Yeah, this is the one we saw at Expo, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, it looked good.
This looked good because it looked like a kind of like an evolution of Mysterium.
And I love Mysterium.
Yeah, and Mysterium is bloody good. And Mysterium is one of those games you can play with absolutely anyone.
Yeah.
You know, somebody comes in who's never played a board game before. I mean, Mysterium, you just go to them. You know, you've played Cluedo. Well, one of you is the dead person. And everyone goes, what?
That's it.
And then that's it. You've got them then.
Yeah.
So this is very similar in a way. So it's a deduction game in which one player plays the ghost and everyone else is paranormal detectives. And they've got to discover how the victim died. So, of course, this sounds very Mysterium-like.
So far, so Mysterium. However,
rather than just being these crazy, like, Dixit-style cards, which Mysterium is, there's a whole variety in ways in which the ghost can communicate with the players. So they can't just, like, tell them, no, you've got to do silly things. Like, one of them is you've got a piece of rope and you've got to put the rope into the shape of the answer to the clue.
Yeah.
Or you've got tarot cards, or you've got a Ouija board in which you can put clues on the Ouija board for the different letters.
Now, as I remember it, as it was being explained to us, this is a competitive game as well, isn't it? So you are not working with your fellow paranormal detectives. You are trying to solve the case before them. And as a player, you get to decide how the ghost is going. Is it cards you've got? And you decide, you give the ghost the card to say, I want you to we're going to use the Ouija board this time, or we're going to use the rope. I
believe so, yeah. I'm trying to remember back because we were both taken through this about 6 months ago at Expo, and I've slept since then, so my brain's been formatted.
So, yeah, as I remember, you, as a player, you go, right, I'm going to choose the Ouija board this time, and then I'm going to ask a question which is going to be answered. However, because I'm using the Ouija board, and we're all trying to solve the same crime, all the other players are aware of the answer. And then the other ones, I forget the example of it was, but this is where the ghost comes up behind you and draws. You ask the question, and they draw something on your back.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
Obviously,
yeah,
so that's it. And so there's going to be some questions that you ask which are going to be public information, and some which are going to be private information. But you're going to be amalgamating everyone's questions and all the answers that you're aware of to try and solve this crime. Try and solve it first. So, yeah. It does.
It sounds pretty cool.
I love Mysterium. I love what it does, and I love how easily it plays and how easy it is to rope people into playing it. This sounds similar from the theme, but after that, it leaves it completely behind.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
It does sound. I mean, it sounds like it's almost going to be easier to play than Mysterium.
Yes, I think there's going to be one of the things that. With Mysterium, it feels, although it's a really fun game, it can feel quite serious and quite intense because you've got that ghost player who is being completely silent and can't join in with the fun. And I think that kind of literally creates a barrier in this game. But I think because you've got the different means of communication in Paranormal Detectives, that's going to break that down, and there's going to be a lot more, not necessarily silliness, but a lot more laughter and a lot more banter at the table.
Mysterium can get a little bit stodgy in places because, of course, one player cannot talk at all. So you're right, there is that kind of... Sometimes it's kind of like everyone's there going, what the frick are you on about, Tudor? Why have you sent me this? And you're like... Yeah.
Whereas I think Paranormal Detectives, it's going to be sillier, but it's also going to have that competitive edge of the ghost does something, and I'm going to go, that makes sense. And you lot are all going to be completely baffled. And that's going to be, and you're going to have that great thing of, even after the game, you're going to be telling each other how you worked it out and when you worked it out and what was the point. It's going to have I think each game is going to create a story for you to take away with as well. Really excited about this one. Thank you for putting it on your list, Steve. My last one, is a game I thought you would have picked and would definitely like. Gates of Delirium from Renegade Games.
I didn't spot this one.
No.
So you're going to have to explain more. This is the whole problem about having a list of 1,100 games. It's very easy to miss one.
So Gates of Delirium is this Eldritch Cthulhu horror style game. It's an area control game, essentially, where you are, as investigators, going across... I can't remember from the map whether it was the globe or just the United States, whether you're going to be trying to investigate the arcane acts and rites that are going on as these kind of horrible incidents are occurring. So you're going to be trying to investigate them, find the clues, close them down, get rid of the cultists, that type of thing. However, the twist comes in this game is that you are playing both as the investigators and as the evil menace that is about to destroy the world. So, you've got these cards. Every player has these, a range of cards which give you the actions that you can do. But there's two sides to them. And a player during a game will decide whether that round is played as sane or insane. If you're playing sane, you have the cards one way. If you play insane, everybody is the evil monsters. You turn your hand of cards upside down and it gives you a completely different separate range of actions that you can do, which you're going to use to run amok with your opponents. Whether you're going to be killing their investigators, converting them, or moving them around just so they kind of have less control. You're going to be opening up this portal, and the designers, John and Mandy Goddard, previously did a game called Lotus, which was about creating like a tableau of a flower. It has a similar thing that you're going to be arranging these portal cards in a circle to create the portal that your ancient one is going to appear in. I think the duality in this game, multi-use cards, this kind of almost kind of working together thing, but then completely dicking on each other at the drop of a hat, the flip of a coin, is really good. I think the artwork looks fantastic. There's even various different like Cthulhu style meeples.
Okay.
It looks really, the artwork looks fantastic. It's dark, it's gripping, but I really like this idea of just, I've got these cards, turn them upside down, use them. It almost feels a little bit like In Between to me, but equally completely different. If you know the board and dice one, the Stranger Things, yeah.
I think that's coming. I think that's becoming a little bit of an underappreciated gem. That so yes, I am intrigued by this. You are correct.
So that's Gates of Delirium, yeah. It's 45 odd quid pre-orders, so it's a little bit more than I thought it would be, honestly.
I've got to admit, actually, looking at the pictures of it, that surprises me. That seems a bit excessive for what seems to be in that box.
Yes.
Okay.
But it could be an absolutely mind-bending game, so I'm all over that. I'd love to give it a go. That is Gates of Delirium from Renegade Games. Right,
so I'm going to pick my last one. I know I cheated earlier and did two for the price of one, but I'm going to do my last one. It's remiss not to do this because I know this game comes into a lot of flack, but I absolutely love this series of games because there is a new version of Time Stories coming out.
Ooh.
At the expo, one of the designers of the Time Story series was at the press preview on the Thursday night, and I spent most of my time there talking to him about what this new version is going to be. And I was like, I know I got a little bit stung by Time Stories in the past. I know that the mixture of how good the individual sessions were, and I know I've still, I think it's two. It's two I still haven't paid, the pirate one and the cinema one. But I'm drawn back in again. I know I am. So what this is kind of like season 2. They're calling it.
Is this the blue box?
This is the blue box system. Yeah.
Ah, yes.
So the last ones they've now called the previous version the black box version, even though they're white boxes. It's to do with the colour of the text, apparently. And so, because they were a white box with black text, whereas this is now is the white box with blue text. And rather than it being Time Stories, it's going to be called Time Stories Revolution.
Right.
And one of the things that they are aiming to do now is it's not... Whereas in the previous one you had to buy the base game and then you had these plug-in modules, my understanding is that this version is completely standalone, so each box will be a completely standalone adventure. So it doesn't have the big board keeping tabs and everything.
Okay, that's quite nice.
Which is tabs on your resources. So the idea is you can jump in and grab one of these ones whenever you want. And what I've been told is they've tried to learn a few lessons. So it's a completely new story. You don't have to know anything about Time Stories. You can jump in straight from the start. It's about kind of a new agency, and it's completely kind of a standalone to the previous version, so you don't have to worry about that. Other than that, of course, we don't know much because it's like an escape room game. The more you know, the less you can actually do with these things. But I still think Time Stories was a revolutionary concept, and I'm really interested to see what they managed to do with this new version, tweaking it and paring it down so it's not as cumbersome as the previous ones.
Okay, interesting. I remember when they was it Space Cowboys that this is, isn't it?
Yes, Space Cowboys was the first one. I believe this is the same. So it's under the Asmodee brand because Space Cowboys were one of the first companies to get. They were one of the first companies to get brought into the Asmodee umbrella. But yes, still under Space Cowboys. And
they, when the news of this first broke, I remember reading that they're also doing, was it A Midsummer Night's Dream? Is going to be the first, not expansion, because you say it's a standalone thing, but it's going to be the next one is A Midsummer Night's Dream. Is that right?
Yes, that was right, yeah.
Oh, look at her. Got a memory like a steel trap, me, Steve.
It's better than mine, then. That's like a rusty bucket.
Oh.
I'm rather looking forward to this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get anyone else to play this with me, though, because I know a couple of people got a little bit fed up with Time Stories who I was playing it with.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
See, I've never actually played Time Stories because, and it's like as you were saying, I was put off by the fact that the price tag of that base game of 50 odd quid or whatever it was when it first came out. And then I'm only going to be able to play that once realistically, and then it's more money for another expansion and another expansion. I was put off by that. And then as more reviews came out about this clunkiness, but this as a completely standalone thing, I think that's going to be a lot more palatable, a lot more easy to kind of jump in and play.
Yeah, it's interesting because when Time Stories first came out, we hadn't had this kind of escape room revolution. So
yeah, I suppose it was. It was a pioneer, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was deemed. I mean, because this came out the year I last went to Essen, which is getting on for about 4 years ago now.
Right.
It was the only time I've ever been there, and it was the talk of the show. And I remember trying to buy it at the show, and I got there like I think Thursday afternoon, and it had already sold out.
Oh, blooming heck! All right.
Well, in English, I could have bought it in French if I wanted to.
Right. Get on your Duolingo, Steve. Get on, you'd be fine.
Oh yeah, see, you're ahead of the game here. So yeah, I remember the big deal about this, and I remember really loving Time Stories, apart from that bloody plunger. But no, that's a bit of a spoiler. If you've played the first Time Stories, you either know the plunger or you don't.
Right. I don't.
But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what they've done with this. So that was Time Stories, which is Time Stories the Hadal Project.
Hadal Project.
Is what this one's called, but it's also known as the Time Stories Blue Project, is what people are calling it, or the Blue Line.
All right. Well, that's it. That's my 5 done.
That's your 5. We've done 5. Now, what I did do, we put a message out on Twitter and Facebook and asked our listeners and followers on the various social medias what their picks were for Essen.
One that I took off my list last minute was and I don't necessarily think it's target audience, but was the Gruffalo Games in the Deep Dark Wood. Because I don't think it's actually at Essen, but it's coming out shortly after Essen. And as a father of 2 young children, we love Julia Donaldson in my house.
I see.
And the Gruffalo, so it's 4 games in one, and it's quite charming and simple, and it's definitely going to be purchased. But it's not at Essen, so...
fair enough. I thought it was coming at Essen. Fair enough.
I can't find it on an Essen list, or didn't see it. I didn't see Yay Games, because they're quite easy to find, because you just go to the last page. It's sort by publisher, go to the last page. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Didn't make it onto the list. Was on the list, but then came off.
Listeners, we've got several people say they are very excited for Maracaibo, which is Alexander Pfister game.
Yep.
Which we've mentioned.
The very wet Great Western Trail.
Very Great Western Trail. Yeah, I do believe that's going to be a big one. I think everyone will be talking about that over the next few months. A couple of people have mentioned Alubari, which is game's changed name because it used to be called A Nice Cup of Tea, but there was another tea game came out last year, and I think they had to change the name. So this is from Tony Boydell.
Oh, okay.
Designer of Snowdonia, and apparently it's a little bit of an evolution of the Snowdonia design, because it's all about the beginning of the tea trade, basically, the tea harvesting. So you're building train lines to transport the tea from across India, basically, but at the same time harvesting the tea and gaining victory points and resources for doing that. So yeah, that's come up a few places. I've seen that.
I remember hearing about that one. Yeah, I like that.
I convinced myself that I'd come out ages ago, but obviously it's been just in development for some time.
Yeah.
Couple of shouts out for Trismegistus, of course. Another one which I didn't mention, which I could have lumped in with my big heavy Euro section. I've heard a few people talk about Terra Mara, which has been named by a couple of listeners as well. This is another massive heavy Euro game which looks ridiculously complicated, and it's basically you are like a prehistoric tribe, but not like a... Whereas where most of these things look like the Echo game you mentioned, they always look like they're in the savannas or whatever. This looks like it's like in Norway or something like that. It's all green and big mountains. And it looks like... I've had a look at the map, and there's really interesting ways in which you gather resources and really interesting ways in which you get victory points. You've got little tracks which your people move down, which actually reminded me a little bit of Sierra West, but on a bigger scale.
Okay. Which
made me also think this could be ridiculously complicated. And then a few people looking for expansions or reissues. So Marco Polo 2 has come up.
Right.
I mean, I must admit, I've heard a lot of people rave about Marco Polo, but I've not played it. And then people talking about the Underwater Cities expansion. I haven't managed to play Underwater Cities.
No, it's on my list of games to play.
Yeah, and a couple of people mentioning Conspiracy, which is a new game in the Abyss universe. And for my sins, I have not played Abyss yet either. I know a lot of people rave about that game, and I've never managed to get to the table. Well, I don't even know somebody who owns that, to be honest with you.
I don't know anyone that's got us either, actually, no. Can't help you, Steve. Sorry.
No. So, unfortunately, I don't know much about Conspiracy either. Although all I know is it's a simple card game set in the Abyss universe. So, the headline.
Right.
So, no doubt, we will find out in like 2 weeks' time whether any of these games actually turned up at Essen and whether there's any buzz about these games. If you did manage to play these, let us know. Give us a drop down at our usual places, which we'll mention in a few minutes. We'd love to hear if any of these games, if you are going to Essen, if any of these games are any good. If you do like a game and somebody asks where you heard about it, of course, drop our name. We do like to be name dropped.
Yeah, we do. Especially the thing that John and Andy aren't here. So if you do drop our name, Steve and I get all the credit this time round. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happens if you call David Turksy Big Davey T, though. We haven't tried that one.
Have we not called him that to his face?
Andy probably has. To be fair. Okay.
I'm sure he'd be fine. He's a nice guy, Davey T.
Thank you very much for listening. We have been one half of Polyhedron Collider. If you actually enjoyed this, please give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or your podcast platform of choice. Don't forget you can chat to us. I said if you've got any feedback for the what you played and what you were looking forward to, we are available on Twitter. We are collectively at Polyhedron C, which is generally me, and I'll disperse it to the rest of the team as needed. But I'm also personally at Wahofamodenga. Andy is at Sonic H with 0, and John is John_Cage, which is basically just pictures of his new Tesla on there at the moment. That's about it.
Is that all he's doing at the moment? Just driving around in his new car with his huge pad and massive screen and no dashboard? I can see the appeal of the car.
Yes. It's quite bizarre.
Odd. It's mind bending to see it like not in a sci-fi movie, really. But there you go. But you can find me on Twitter at Rory J Summers. We're also on Facebook, so it's Facebook Polyhedron Collider, and we've got the BGG Guild at 2726. If
you fancy some D&D, we will be regularly streaming on Thursday nights at about 7:30 UK time. We're on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider. John keeps promising me that he's going to upload all the previous episodes to YouTube, so youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider. If you are a RPG fan, by the way, our last episode was an RPG special, which basically just talked random nonsense about role-playing games. We'd love some feedback about that, actually, because we are playing a lot more role-playing games, and we want to know how best to kind of support them. Do you want them mixed into the show? Do you want separate shows? Do you want us to just not talk about the podcast because you're a board game player and you don't want those dreaded RPGs in there?
You've also got polyhedroncollider.com, so if you want to catch our Kickstarter highlights, the News Collider, where we cover the best of the best from Kickstarter and the most interesting and bizarre of board gaming news, it's all there, along with our written reviews of board games that we are playing.
When me and Andy actually pull our thumb out of our backside and actually write them, that is.
But not judging.
No. Until next time, folks, I've been Steve Tudor. Happy gaming.
Bye-bye.